This podcast is brought to you by the Islamic Center and NYU. For more information, visit our website at www.icnyu.org.
Bismillahi walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome to this Pre-Iftar talk. The topic I chose for today is come back to what you're created for. Okay, and it's because I believe that that's what Ramadan is really inviting us to do, right? It's an invitation to come back to what we were created for, to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us for. And when you think about what you're created for, what is the word that comes to mind? What is the word that defines that? What's the word that describes what we're created for? No, I mean, like, that's what we are created for, but the act of being created for something, right, is defined as what? Purpose. Right? That's your purpose. That's what purpose is what something is created for. For example, a pen is created to write, right? And if you really think about it, and I want to connect, before I tell you that we're here to worship Allah, that's our purpose, right? I want to just connect you to the meaning of purpose. And if you think about it, there is nothing that is created without purpose. Can purpose exist after creation of something? Or does the purpose have to be known before that thing is created? Before, right? Did the person who create the pen, create the pen and put ink in it and then say, oh, you know what, I'm going to write with this? No, right? He knew that he was creating the pen to write. And so the purpose of something, the maker of anything, has to define the purpose before they create that thing, right? And that's why, whenever we want to learn something, whether it's we want to learn how to use a machine or we want to learn how to, interact with a tool or an Apple phone, we go to what? The manual. We go to who made it. Would you go to an Android manual to find out how to use an iPhone? You wouldn't, right? And so the purpose of something is always defined before it is created. And as the pen was created to write, did you think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not define for us a purpose before he created us? Absolutely not. Right? But first, what is the psychological power of having a purpose? And what I like to look at is the psychology of worship, the psychology of our spiritual experience, how we interact with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how we walk towards Allah. And so what is the psychological power of purpose? Purpose serves a psychological need. And this is something that a lot of us are so disconnected from, right? And as a result, we're on cruise control every single day. We're just going through the motions and we're doing a lot of things, but maybe going to bed and not feeling nourished, not feeling awake. We're living, but not alive, right? And so that's because we're missing the psychological need that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already equipped us with, but we're disconnected from it. And we know in the world of psychology that connecting to purpose has a tremendous psychological effect on the human being. It improves their mental health. It makes them more present. It makes them more connected to everything they're doing. It has tremendous psychological benefits. And you could look up various research studies, just look up the research on purpose, and you'll see a bunch of things on how people who are connected to their purpose are healthier. They are more goal-driven. They are more likely to achieve their goals. They are more present. They're more at peace, right? So many benefits. There's a branch of psychology that looks at psychology through the existential lens, meaning through the lens of existence, like why we're here, our purpose, and it's called existential psychology. And it views purpose basically as necessary for resilience, that we need to be connected to our purpose in order for us to be more resilient. It views purpose as essential for resilience, coping with struggles, and greater joy and happiness in life. So if somebody, I just want you to imagine, if someone is just living purposefully, let's just like outside of like just deen, right? Outside of even connecting it to Allah. Let's say like if this is these are the benefits they found for people who are purposeful in their life, not necessarily connecting it to God, not necessarily just living with purpose. They know the why behind what they're doing. Now imagine the benefit we would receive if we are living according to the purpose. We are living, in line with the purpose that is according to the one who created us. Imagine how elevated our life will be, right? Everything would be taken to the next level. We would receive these benefits and more, right? On a holistic level. So there's this psychological power, psychological, spiritual, right? Holistic power of being connected to our purpose. Because what purpose does is that it allows you to derive meaning from everything that exists, right? So meaning that when we say you were created with purpose, meaning that your life has meaning, your existence has meaning, it has value. And that's why we need to be connected to this, because a lot of us, when we learn about why we're created, we're always connected to the verse, well, Allah did not create jinn or ins except to worship him. And that is true, but we miss the point. It's not just so that you can perform some acts of worship and check them off. No, you were created with meaning. You were created with value, right? Who would give something a purpose if he did not see it with value? If he did not see you to have value, right? The things that maybe we don't identify their purpose in the world are the things that maybe don't have value, right? Maybe things that we discard. That's when you throw out something, right? Because we say, what? It has no purpose. Throw that out. It has no purpose. So just Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala defining a purpose for us is like one of the foundational expressions of his love for us. And one of the foundational expressions of him telling us, you matter, you are valued. I did not create you in vain. And so one of the sayings in existential psychology by Friedrich Nietzsche is, those who have a why to live can bear almost any how. So when you are connected to the why behind, just like let's say you setting out to accomplish a goal, one goal. If you're connected to the why behind that goal, you're most likely going to tackle any how that comes along the way. You have a higher likability, you're more likely to tackle those hows more easily than somebody who's not connected to the why. Someone who sets out to be a doctor, right? If they know the why they want to be a doctor, they're most likely going to be more resilient at tackling those hows and MCATs and all those things that tough road ahead, more than somebody who just isn't connected to why they want to be a doctor. It's the same. Now think of it now on a larger scale, our very life. When we are connected to the why we are here, why we exist, we have a higher chance of tackling anyhow, right? We become more resilient. We derive meaning more easily from our experiences because we realize we matter. We realize that we're not here in vain and that we have a path and we have a why. So why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the why? He gave you the why for your tests and struggles. He gave you the why for so many things, for the beauty that he created on earth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran in chapter 2, verse 29, it is he who created for you, right? Not like he could have just said he created all that which is on the earth. No, he says it is he who created for you all of that which is on the earth. Then he directed himself to the heaven and made them 7 heavens, and he is the knowing of all things. Why would Allah tell us, I created this for you? So not only did I create you with a purpose, right? And I gave you existence, meaning before he gave you existence, you would have been something that was not known. Your name in people's lives would not have been on their tongues, right? Your existence, they wouldn't even know what it would be like for you not to be in their lives, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving you existence is an expression of his love, right? Because I know sometimes people that say like, I didn't ask to be created, but that's he could have created you and I mean, he could have not created you. He didn't need to create you. Allah is not in need of us, right? Essentially. So he created you for you. Now you have a life, you have existence, right? You have a name. And he told our parents to name us what? With the best of names, right? We have value. Again, valuable. They matter. And then he says, it is, he who created for you all that which is on the earth. Look at what I have beautified for you. My teacher used to always say that, every spring, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala well, before that, he used to say, you know, like people spend so much time, like out of love, like giving flowers to those who love them, and, you know, and decorating, you know, places for people they love. And look at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he beautifies the entire earth for us in the spring. He brings it from, you know, dead to life, right? And how many of us think of that as like, oh, look at what Allah's doing for us, right? So we're in the spring now, so it's something to think about. And of course, the verse that we all are familiar with is that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, and I did not create the jinn and mankind except to worship me. So here's where I really want us to change our, you know, perspective on what it means to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, when you look up worship, it's a verb, right? It's an act. It's, if you look up the definition of it, it'll be defined usually as the ultimate devotion. Sometimes when people say they love someone, you know, they'll say, you know, it's almost like a form of, it's a form of shirk, right? They'll say like, I worship the ground they walk on, right? Isn't that like an expression that you hear when people like express this immense love for someone? Another definition for worship is to show reverence and adoration, right? So, and in Islam, in the Arabic language, ibadah is another word for ubudiyya, right? Which is like servitude, right? Or we, you know, sometimes it's translated just very literally as like to be a slave of Allah, right? And refers to obedience. That's really, it refers to obedience, submission, humility. Linguistically, it means obedience with submission. That's the ultimate like meaning of ibadah. It's like a form, it's like a holistic form of, you know, adoration, devotion. You're devoting yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, obedience with that submission. Like, I submit to you, Ya Allah, right? And the reality is that from a psychological perspective, we know that everyone worships something. And that's something that I have come to see in my work as a clinician, is that even one of my professors once said, she wasn't Muslim, but she said, God is anyone's highest value. Everyone has a God, you know, in just false gods, right? And it could be false gods. And of course, we want to worship the one true God, right? But just because you're not worshiping Allah doesn't mean that you don't have something that has the highest value. Everyone worships something. Everyone has something that they are ultimately devoted to. Remember, the definition is the ultimate devotion. And it's just a matter of who is more worthy of that devotion other than Allah? Who is more worthy of that devotion other than the one who created you? Who is more worthy of that obedience with submission? And who is more worthy of that humility, right? And that reverence, that respect and adoration other than the one who has created the earth for you, who has created your eyes to see, your ears to hear, the blessings that you have, who you wouldn't exist or be known without him. Who is more worthy than that? And it's about asking yourself that question constantly. It's that who is more worthy of me caring about, you know, them being pleased with me, right? Who is more worthy? Here I am stressing about, is this person pleased, or is this person, should I change this? Should I do this? When I'm not even thinking about the one who created me, right? And so it's knowing that we as human beings are inclined to make something our highest value. We are inclined, and we have a longing within us to look for something higher than ourselves. And I can tell you, working with Muslims and both non-Muslims, that longing is in every single person. I've had people come into my office and tell me that when I ask them, why are you here? They'll say something like, I had, you know, one person say, you know, there's nothing really wrong with my life. I don't know why I'm here. I have everything. I have my family, I have my loved ones, I have good support system, because I go through like what's missing and what are the things that, you know, what are the things, all the different areas of their lives. And they're just like, I just feel empty, you know. And some people do recognize that that's an existential need, that there's something they're disconnected from. So I want you to see how there's so many times when I would walk out and say, wow, alhamdulillah for Islam. Alhamdulillah for Allah giving me the knowledge of why I exist, why I matter, why I'm living this life, why I go through tests and struggles. Because for a lot of people, they don't have access to that treasure, to that knowledge. And so that's what purpose is. It's knowing the why. It's knowing, you know, that I'm not just here to live a life of vain, and that I'm going to have this longing in my heart to long for so many things, but I won't forget that no one is more worthy of fulfilling that longing and that adoration, that devotion, that respect, that reverence, that obedience, other than the one who created me. That is what ibadah is. When we think of ibadah, we often just solely think of acts of worship, right? And that's part of it. It's prayer, fasting. And these are great obligations for every Muslim, but do you think that ibadah, your entire purpose, which is ibadah, right? That's what we know, is going to just be about solely checking off these things? Does that make sense? To be like, I've heard people say, I know Allah created me to worship him, I'm doing that. Like, it's like I got it, that's because we're missing the love, we're missing that meaning from it, right? And we're just checking off, people are just checking off their acts of worship. And so I want to share with you some of the ways in which early scholars have defined worship. So Sheikh Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, has said, worship, ibadah, is obedience to Allah by following that which he ordered upon the tongues of his messengers. He also says that worship is a comprehensive term covering everything that Allah loves and is pleased with, whether sayings or actions, outward and inward. Okay, so he looks at it as a comprehensive thing. It's you just going, basically gravitating towards the things that Allah loves and is pleased with. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah has said, worship revolves around 15 principles. Whoever completes them has completed the stages of ubudiyyah. The explanation of this is that ibadah is divided between the heart, the tongue, and the limbs. And that for each one of these three come 5 types of rulings covering all actions, that are wajib, mustahab, haram, makruh, or mubah. Imam al-Qurtubi rahimahullah has said that the root of ibadah is humility and submissiveness. The various duties that have been prescribed upon the people are called ibadah, since what is required is that these acts of worship must be done with humility and submissiveness to Allah. And Ibn Kathir rahimahullah has said, an ibadah is obedience to Allah by acting upon what he commands and abandoning what he forbids. And this is the reality and essence of Islam. And the meaning of Islam is submission. Right? It's istislam. It's to surrender to Allah the Most High, along with the utmost compliance, humility, and submissiveness to him. And so the holistic expression of devoting oneself to Allah externally and internally is through both outward forms of worship and internal forms of worship. It's that this inner understanding of why you're here and why you're created translates into you fulfilling these outward acts of worship with presence, with humility, with obedience, right? And it encompasses the following. So ibadah it's beyond just, doing these acts of worship. It's to know Allah. It's to love Allah. It's to submit to him and devote one's life to him. It's knowing his words, his messengers, his book, his attributes. It's knowing his commands and striving to obey them. It's essentially connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and seeking him and bearing witness to him through everything we go through in our lives. What do we say when we become Muslim? It's called what in Arabic? Does anyone know? The shahada, right? And when we bear witness to the truth, that's what shahada is. It's a testimonial. So essentially, to become Muslim, you say the shahada, you become a bearer of witness to truth. To worship Allah, to fulfill your purpose, you do that throughout your life. You witness his truth, you seek his truth, you embody his truth, you live his truth, right? And so the essence of ibadah is the comprehensive experience of love and connection with the one who designed us, created us, and the one we will return to. Allah has made this our purpose. So this is really important to know, because then we know that Allah did not create us in vain. He did not create us without purpose, without truth, without meaning, and without the why. And purpose, it awakens you. It awakens your heart, your life. So we have to ask ourselves, why am I disconnected from my purpose? And why is it that, we have to evaluate what is causing that disconnect. Is it that I don't know enough about Allah? Do I need to increase my knowledge about that? Do I need to increase my knowledge about his names? Do I need to increase my knowledge about the akhirah, about where I'm going? What is missing in that component that's going to awaken my heart? there's a beautiful verse in the Quran that I really, I've connected to very deeply over the years. And it's because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking us a question that you can't help but like pause at, right? And this is in Surah Al-Hadid, where Allah subhanahu, oh wait, actually, sorry, where is it? Okay, well, I don't have the full verse here, but the first part of the question that I always was connected to was, isn't it time for my servant, basically Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I wish I had it, but apparently I didn't, let me actually look here, hold on. I want to say the whole thing for you guys. Okay, here it is. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us in the Quran, isn't it time for those who believe that their hearts should become humbly submissive at the remembrance of Allah and what has come down of the truth? So it's such a powerful question and it's gentle but assertive, right? It's like, isn't it time? When someone says, if someone asked you, when will you do something, right? Or it doesn't have the same power as someone asking you, isn't it time? Meaning if not now, then when, right? If not now, how much time are you going to let pass? How much time are you going to let pass to come back to Allah? So I'm going to say it again. And I want you to really be present with this verse as if Allah's saying that to you. And again, it's in Surah Al-Hadid, chapter 57, verse 16, if anyone wants to connect to it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us, isn't it time for those who have believed that their hearts should become humbly submissive at the remembrance of Allah and what has come down of the truth? This is the month in which we respond and say, it is time. Right? It is time that we come back to our purpose, to what we are created for. It is time for us to really to humbly submit ourselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's essentially what we're all striving to do this month. And may Allah help all of us here continue to do that and beyond Ramadan as well. One of the greatest things that I think really disconnects people from connecting to the purpose is disconnecting from their acts of worship. Because remember, we said our purpose is to worship Allah, right? And that comprehensive meaning of worshiping Allah. But one of the things that I really believe disconnects us from that is a disconnect from the unseen, al-ghaib, the things that we cannot see, the things that we are veiled from. And I want to connect you to a verse in Surah Al-Baqarah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, in the first few verses, right? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alif Lam Mim. ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين الذين يؤمنون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة ومما رزقناهم ينفقون. So we know Alif Lam Mim, it has its own meaning that we won't understand. But Allah starts out Surah Al-Baqarah by telling us that verily this is the book in which there is no doubt. Guidance for those who are conscious of Allah, for those who have taqwa. But then Allah describes to you those who have taqwa, and He says, الذين يؤمنون بالغيب, those who believe in the unseen. The first thing before يقيمون الصلاة ومما رزقناهم ينفقون, before prayer, before standing up for prayer and giving out from that which we have provided them, the first thing Allah says to describe the people of taqwa are those who believe in the unseen. Why do you guys think that is? Why would Allah say belief in the unseen to describe the people of taqwa before He even says prayer and giving charity? I mean, we know prayer is the first thing we're going to be asked about, right, on the Day of Judgment. So why do you guys think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes us first with that? Allah, we can't see Allah, right? That's first thing, is Allah part of of course, Allah is unseen, right? So when we say I want to be connected to my purpose and I want to be somebody who really is in line with my purpose and worships Allah, you have to believe in the unseen. When you stand in prayer, so remember the second and third thing was what? Prayer and giving charity, right? So when you stand in prayer, what's going to maximize your prayer? It's a connection to the unseen. It's a connection to the fact that as you are standing in prayer, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has turned His gaze to you. And as you say every verse in Surah Al-Fatiha, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds to every single verse, that Allah is in a dialogue with you. So you need to be connected to the unseen for your prayer to come to life. Are the angels unseen? Absolutely. The angels are unseen. The angel on your right, the angel on your left. I always say in this world, a lot of us are more concerned with shaitan and jinn and all these things, but we forget the angels. We forget that we have angels that protect us. We forget that we have angels always with us. We forget that I mentioned this at a recent gathering, I think at the Qiyam with you guys, that there are angels who search the universe for people who come together to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And so we forget that, but that's all unseen. So the unseen is what Allah what exists, but Allah has veiled from you. So it's existing. It's existing currently. It's existing presently. It's existing right now. We just can't see it. It's a veil. So the unseen is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as you mentioned, his angels, yes, shaitan, the hereafter, right? Because we do have to recognize shaitan too, because Allah says, take him as your enemy, right? He's there. There's an influence. The hereafter, day of judgment, heaven, hell, our return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those are all things that are unseen. And one of the things that, to be connected to our purpose constantly, like for you to remember, okay, I know the why. I know why I'm created. You need to remember what is true, right? And we are disconnected from those truths. We are disconnected from the realities that Allah promised us, from the fact that we are going to return to him. And the Prophet ﷺ himself would connect himself to these truths consistently. In fact, there's a beautiful prayer that he would make in tahajjud. And this is the prayer where it was narrated by Ibn Abbas, where he would say that the Rasul ﷺ used to invoke Allah at night, saying, and I would like, if you've been drifting off, try to be present with this. Bring yourself back, bring your heart back to this very moment. I know we're getting close to Iftar, but this hadith is just so powerful in really connecting our heart to truth. And so the Prophet ﷺ would say this dua in tahajjud. He would say, "Oh Allah, all the praises are for you. You are the Lord of the heavens and the earth. All the praises are for you. You are the maintainer of the heavens and the earth and whatever is in them. All the praises are for you. You are the light of the heavens and the earth. Your word is the truth. Your promise is the truth. And the meeting with you is the truth. And paradise is the truth. And hell is the truth. And the hour is the truth. Oh Allah, I surrender myself to you, and I believe in you, and I depend upon you, and I repent to you, and with you I stand against my opponents, and to you I leave the judgment, for those who are against us or refuse his message. Oh Allah, forgive me my sins that I did in the past or will do in the future, and also the sins I did in secret or in public. You are my only God, and there is no other God for me." How beautiful is this dua? Remember earlier when we said everybody worships something? Everybody praises, like it's the ultimate devotion, we said, right? And you praise who you have your highest devotion to. And this is the Prophet ﷺ, who is the most devoted to Allah than any of us. And here he is praising Allah to that degree. In the first part, do you see how many times he says, all praises are for you? There's no one more worthy of our praise than the one who created us, right? And then what he did was affirm all the truths. Because when you are connected to these truths, that's what awakens your purpose. That's what reminds you why you're here, that you have a meeting with Allah, that you are returning, that your soul does not end up here. I always mention this quote by Rumi. He says, my soul is from elsewhere and I plan on ending up there, right? That we know, this is not our final destination. And so there are many harms to being disconnected from the unseen, starting with the fact that you are going to be disconnected from your purpose. If you're disconnected from the unseen and you're about to do a good deed, you're disconnected from the fact that the angels just recorded that for you. You're disconnected from the fact that that deed has value for you in a time and in a place that you do not see, that you are veiled from. You're disconnected, right? But when you are connected to that reality, then you did that deed. It doesn't matter who didn't acknowledge it. It's acknowledged. Allah saw it. It's gonna. You know that it's gonna weigh on your scales. You know that it matters in a world that is more permanent and far higher than here, right? And so without that connection to the unseen, you lack a connection to what you're doing. You become more attached to people seeing what you're doing and this world seeing what you're doing than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala seeing what you're doing. It makes you less freer. The most free people are the people who are not in need of people seeing everything they do. They have this inner intrinsic affirmation that they know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees what they do and affirms what they do and rewards them for what they do, right? Harms of being disconnected from the unseen is less meaning and purpose. If you're disconnected from Allah, if you're disconnected from the fact that what you do in this world matters in a world that is unseen, if you're disconnected from all these things, you derive less meaning from your experiences. This becomes your only permanent reality. So this is where, instead of Allah being your destination, you meeting him becomes your destination. This world becomes your most permanent state. That creates a lot of distress. But when you know that, everything that happens here has value in a different world, it makes things lighter. I'm not saying that it takes away pain completely, but it makes, pain is part of our path, but it makes things lighter. So this world and its troubles become your only reality, and you become disconnected from God's validation of you and your actions, and your acts of worship will not come to life. There are some psychological harms also disconnected from the unseen, higher levels of anxiety. Remember, I mentioned existential psychology before. It actually recognizes that people's anxiety levels go up when they are not at terms with the fact that their life is temporary. So when people have not come to terms with the fact that they're going to die, that it actually increases their level of anxiety, right? And they give examples of people who, get the news that they're going to pass away. They get a chronic illness. May Allah, preserve everyone's health here and, give a cure to anyone who is struggling. But they give when they describe this, they give an example of someone who just received the news that they're going to die. What usually happens to those people is that something turns on. They're just like, what have I been doing? How have I been living? No, I don't have time for this. No, I don't have time for that. It's a filtration system, right? So they say that people who actually come to terms with that reality that I'm not here forever. I'm not guaranteed tomorrow. I might not be here, for long. And they're just awakened by that reality. Guess what happens? Their present comes to life. The things that they waste their time on, they start to let go. They easily let go. Their anxiety becomes reduced. Isn't that crazy? That the more connected you are to the fact that you are not guaranteed tomorrow, it actually makes you more awake. But I think it's how we do it, right? It's how we do it. If it's about recognizing that all I have is today, in the sense that I need to maximize. I need to maximize what Allah has given me. And you also, when you're disconnected from the unseen, you also place a burden on your mind, your heart, and body that they weren't designed to bear. Many people carry things that really do not add value to their lives. They do not add value to their lives. They do not add value to their health. And we carry these things thinking that, oh, I need this, I need this, I need this. But when you're hit with that reality, you're just like, no, I don't need all these things. And Ramadan is a perfect time to also recognize this. I mentioned this last time, right? That Ramadan is like, makes you realize, wow, I don't need all these things, and I've been like scattering myself, doing all these things when really, I'm sufficed. I'm sufficed doing these acts of worship and being connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you walk your path feeling heavier, carrying what is not yours, and you feel mentally scattered. And also you forget who you are. And I want to really connect your heart to this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, do not be like those who forgot Allah. He made them forget themselves. When you forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you forget your purpose, when you forget why you're here, do you think you're going to really remember what you need? You might remember what you want, what you desire. You might be running after a bunch of things. I need this. I think I need this. But really, it might not be things that you need. It might not be things that actually serve you. So essentially you're like a leaf in the wind, right? Running after things that you think benefit you, only to find yourself still, with your thirst unquenched. So when we remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we remember our purpose, Allah makes us remember what is good for us. And this is what you see, honestly, like when you sit and connect to the fact that that your life is a gift, and every day that you're given is not guaranteed to you. And you start living each day as if it was your last, like the Sahaba used to do, right? That question people ask, what would you do if it was your last day on earth, right? Well, you could ask yourself that today, and you could what would I do? Really, what would I do? And the Sahaba used to live like this, radiallahu anhum. They used to live the day as if they would not reach the evening, and they would live the evening as if they would not reach the day. And how did they live their life as a result of that mindset? Is that they maximized their days. And that's such a beautiful way to live. And I want you to try it this Ramadan. There's no better time for you to try this than this month, where you connect yourself to the reality that, that this is not your most permanent place, that your soul is not from here and does not end up here, and that you have a destination, right? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have a meeting with Allah, and we don't know when that meeting is. We had a sister in our community who passed away very young. She was in her early 20s. And when she got the news that she had cancer, she was writing a blog at the time. And she had written that, when she first received the news that she got cancer, she felt like sorry for herself a little bit, that like, I'm going to die, I'm like, she was hit with that reality. Like, I'm going to, that I'm dying, and she's young, and she's feeling like she's going before others, right? She's going before everyone else. And then she said she came to this realization that like, no, I'm no different than anyone else. Everyone's going to die. I just know mine is like coming, right? But in reality, this news I received is no different than the news we all have. And when we look at this from the perspective of like, like this life is a gift and my purpose is a gift, and this, Allah gave me this life because I matter, and He wants me to maximize my potential, and He wants me to maximize my life here, and He wants me to return to Him in a good state, then we have a different perspective. And I want you again to try this, to try connecting to your heart, to that reality, to the unseen, to the fact that there's a world that exists that you are veiled from, that is real and true, and that we all have our meeting there. And I want you to practice igniting that connection every day, just even on a little bit each day, either by connecting to the verses in the Quran that remind you of Jannah, and sit with them and imagine it. And Allah gives you such detailed description of Jannah. Why? Because imagination is so powerful. We know this in psychology, that visualization is what ignites a person's connection to their goal. What do we say is our ultimate goal as Muslims? Jannah. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us such vivid details in the Quran about Jannah, right? What's going to exist, what it's going to look like, things like that, right? So we could sit and imagine, sit and use this imagination, use it to visualize, so this heart becomes awakened and connected to its goal. So do not forget who you are. Remember I said by connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by connecting to your purpose, you remember who you are. And in essence, it's that you are a spiritual being having a human experience, not a human being having a spiritual experience. Your soul is who you are. This human experience with all its troubles, its challenges, its blessings, everything, that is the experience. That's what's temporary. It's not who you are. Who you are transcends this world. It goes beyond this time. It goes beyond your body. It transcends your defined period in this world. And that's such a powerful thing, right? That Allah subhanahu, you matter so much to Allah that even your existence, right? Your existence at the soul level is not temporary. And so your humanness is the experience, what is temporary, but not what is, it's not the permanent part of you. And I would like to end by sharing with you a poem I wrote, hoping to connect you to I teach this in my Sacred Self-Love course. And I'm going to share it with you today because I hope it connects you to just the love that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has for you. Just give me 1 second. Okay. So this poem is called Al-Wadud, which is one of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is, He's the creator of love. He's the source of love. And I'm hoping that this will connect your heart to just the beautiful meaning behind Allah giving us existence and His love for us. So, Bismillah. I searched for love and saw others search for it too. We may not have defined it as love, but it was something we knew. Something we have already felt deep within our soul, because how can we want what we do not already know? We must have gotten a taste of what love is, we must have gotten a taste of what love is, or a newborn wouldn't yearn for a mother's kiss. We came out of wombs already knowing love, like a nostalgic scent of perfume, we yearn to smell it as it was. But nothing ever comes close to that love we knew. And when we think we found it, our longing for it only grew. It's like arriving at a mirage with our thirst unquenched, only to set out searching again, with our hearts confused and clenched. Because that love we seek, that love our soul already knows, it was meant to be the fragrance, but we mistook it for the rose. It was created as the path, the means, but not the end, so that our soul finds its way by following its scent. Assent the soul already knows, when as commanded it rose, and a promise it swore. Assent the soul already knows because it smelled it before, when as commanded it rose, and a promise it swore. It knew it was love before it even entered the womb, because before it was nothing, and then it became something known. Who would give what is nothing life and make it beautiful and pristine if it wasn't out of love and to make his love known and seen? Only the creator of love would be the creator of you and me, because only he would create, nourish, and provide, but of needs be completely free. Jazakumullah khair.
If you would like to listen to more, please donate to www.icnyu.org/donate. For more of our virtual programs, go to www.icnyu.org/classes. If you have any questions, email us at info@icnyu.org.